Hello and welcome to the Evolve Pipedrive podcast, where we talk all things Pipedrive, sales, apps, and the Pipedrive marketplace. My name is Bruce Bignell. I'm the sales director here at Evolve, and today I'm super pumped to be joined by David Gable, the head of sales at Kixie, where we will be continuing our journey through the Pipedrive marketplace. Now, I'm so pumped to have David on today for a couple of reasons. One, he absolutely loves Pipedrive and he absolutely loves Kixie. And two, he brings so much energy to every conversation about the platforms. And I'm super excited for you guys to meet him. So, David, with that being said, you're on this podcast today because Kixie's on the Pipedrive marketplace. So please, can you introduce Kixie?
Yeah, and guilty as charged. I am a huge fan of Kixie and Pipedrive, and I'm also pumped to be here. So my name is David Gable. I'm the head of sales for Kixie. You mentioned that we're an app on the marketplace. We're also a longtime user of Pipedrive. We've used Pipedrive since our inception years ago, back when Pipedrive was a small little company charging, I think, $15 a seat or something like that. You know what I mean? Way back in the day, before they had all the features and all the cool stuff they have now. So yeah, I'm thrilled to be on this podcast.
Brilliant, thank you. So yes, so tell me, what does Kixie bring to the Pipedrive marketplace?
That is a great question because it's definitely not immediately obvious from our name, right? So what Kixie is a voice and text automation platform that integrates with Pipedrive and really turns Pipedrive into a true sales machine. What I mean by that is, typically you're a customer that adopts Pipedrive, and you have a choice to make between either kind of a basic platform, like a basic dialing platform that integrates with Pipedrive that maybe lets you call and text out of it, that maybe tracks and records those calls inside of it, but doesn't really do much else than that. And a really powerful all-in-one platform that exists outside of Pipedrive entirely, like a Genesis or a Five9 or maybe a sales engagement platform like an Outreach or a SalesLoft, but that doesn't integrate with Pipedrive. You don't see the calls and text tracked there automatically, and you're not able to operate from inside of Pipedrive like we'd all like to do. Since Pipedrive is such a great UI, why don't we take advantage of that, right? So Kixie bridges that divide. We're a deeply integrated phone system that lets you text and call directly from Pipedrive and tracks and records all those calls within it, but also has a whole bunch of fancy dialing features that those big advanced all-in-one platforms have to increase sales and to otherwise increase the efficacy of your team.
Yeah, I love it. You mentioned something there, a true sales machine, and
Yeah,
I hope we touch upon this in a bit later about when you start getting the CRM, the phone system, the automations. This becomes a machine that works with your reps, right? It's super.
100%. I mean, let's dive into it because I think that really is the crux of this thing. I mean, one of the cool things is that we're here to talk about a CRM that is already really focused on sales. I think Pipedrive realized early on before a lot of people did, when other companies like HubSpot were focusing on MarTech, Pipedrive was focusing on sales tech, which is only just now really kind of come into the marketplace in its own right, And when you dive into Pipedrive, this thing is built to be something that helps increase the revenue of your company, increase the sales of it. So what we do is we extend a lot of the things that Pipedrive does really well: contact management, pipeline management, being able to see deal routing, being able to track all of your communication in one place with your prospects. And we extend that into the voice and text messaging space. So, and I'll get into all of this. Now we can help increase the efficacy of my reps' outreach to these prospects and also automate a lot of the work we're doing in terms of both our calling and texting and also the busy work that sits in between our calling and texting.
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, so from your point of view, from Kixie's point of view, right? So what does a successful customer to Kixie look like? Because Pipedrive has the SME space and that kind of built up quite well, and obviously they've grown. That they're looking to to kind of as they mature. I think they turned 11 this year, right, in 2021.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Which is insane. They always say it takes 10 years to become an overnight success, right? So, and that sales text that's just on the app. So, where's your sweet spot for Kixie? What's the sweet spot there?
That's a great question. We have a really diverse set of customers and verticals that we work with. And I guess what makes more sense, let me talk to you about the three elements of Kixie and the types of customers each attract, because it's kind of a cool strata. So Kixie really has three buckets of features that appeal to different people for different reasons. So the first I kind of already alluded to. I like the fact that your podcast and company is called Evolve. And I feel like that's kind of what you've done over the last several episodes, right? You talked to Just Call and learned about being able to call and text from within Pipedrive. You talked to Eric Call and learned about being able to get some insights and analytics from those calls and texts. And now you're talking to us about how we can take it to the next level with automations and a bunch of features. So that first bucket is the stuff you've kind of been speaking about the last couple episodes. It's so important, right? I want to be able to call from Pipedrive, text from Pipedrive, have those call recordings embed inside of Pipedrive automatically, being able to text from Pipedrive the customers that are already in Pipedrive and know that they got those text messages. That's important to everybody. So everybody from a real estate agent to someone who's running a customer success department at a major tech company, they all care about that. So for that bucket of Kixie features, we get everybody, and we take everybody. We don't have a strict cutoff, either a minimum number of seats or maximum number of seats. The second bucket of Kixie, I think I alluded to fancy dialing features. That's sort of vague. So let's drill that down a little bit. What I mean by that are things that increase the overall efficacy of your rep's ability to connect with prospects. So whether that's being able to drop an automatic voicemail with one click if someone doesn't pick up so they don't have to leave the same voicemail 20 times in a day, or being able to send a text message from a template that automatically populates the person's name and your name into the text message, or being able to call someone with a local area code number that doesn't show as spam and that it rotates so your number doesn't get blocked. That kind of stuff, we attract sales teams all over the world. So whether it's Grant Cardone, who uses Kixie, Jordan Belfort, the Wolf of Wall Street guys, Beretta, the gun manufacturer, Amerisave, customers in all sorts of verticals who have sales teams that want to deliver more revenue and connect with more prospects, that bucket is great for them and a big one of our wins.
Talk about wins. Who closed Grant Cardone?
that you know what? That was actually my colleague Gary Carlson.
That's so good. I met Gary.
He did a great job.
He's a good guy.
Yes, you know Gary. He's the one who introduced us.
Yeah.
Yes, and you know what's so funny is we got in on one of Grant's businesses. I think it was his real estate venture. And now there's like a million different components of Grant's businesses that all use Kixie.
Sure.
And we have a whole referral pipeline now where someone comes from Grant Cardone. We have a sales engineer specifically dedicated to all of his accounts that can set up the same workflow automations and processes that he uses on his end to help customers of his win too. It's really cool. It's a great relationship we have going on.
Yeah, he's got a nice phrase. He's such a big caller, right? That's what a lot of his content's about and how he's built his businesses. But is it skill versus? He's got this phrase where he calls it skill versus fear or something like this. He's like, yeah, we're all scared. But if you've got enough skill, you can get on the phone. And the reason I wanted to mention that was some of the features that you guys can help a rep with, right? So, okay, you might have fear of them not picking up. Fine, or you don't know who to call next, or you don't know what voicemail to leave. What's the next step after a text message or you've got all these cool features there.
Yeah, that's a great segue. That is the third bucket, right? Let's automate some of this stuff. So let's give a little automated push to my reps so that they make these calls. And we do that right through workflow. So one of the reasons I started talking to you guys in the first place is because I love working with implementation specialists, right? You guys at Evolve take someone's Pipedrive and you do what we do, which is you turn it into an amazing sales machine, right? Like you take a look at their pipelines, you take a look at their sales process, you codify it, you break it up into different components, you figure out all the different stages and steps the reps should be taking to kind of maximize their own efficacy and their communication with prospects and their deal volume and being able to track and record all the analytics for the managers. You get all of that stuff sorted out. What we get to then do is we say, well, let's automate a lot of that busy work, right? The stuff that sits, these reps who have call hesitancy and are using, logging within the CRM as an excuse not to make their next calls, which we know is a very, attractive prospect. If it's between calling someone cold and trying to bridge a conversation or updating some deal notes inside of Pipedrive, like the latter is going to be the place, a refuge for someone seeking to avoid the pain or scariness of making that call.
Yep.
We can automate that stuff so that we get rid of that excuse, right? Let's automate that busy work. And the second thing we can do is we can automate calling and texting itself. So the minute a new deal comes into the funnel, it gets assigned to a rep, let's automate a call from that rep to the prospect that minute when speed to lead is important and when we know call hesitancy is going to get in the way of that. So yeah, it is a big component of what we do.
Yeah, I love that. And sorry, I went a little bit tangentos on the Grant Cardone because I'm
It's
sure.
great.
Yeah, I did know that Gary did that actually. I think he told us when we
Yeah,
first met. But so
yeah, they've been a great customer.
yes,
Yeah.
if you got the basics, the fancy dialing features, and the automation, what gets you excited about? What does the roadmap look like? Because you've got your dialing and your text messaging and your automation piece. What does the future look like?
Ooh, I do like this question. So I'm going to take one step back and then two steps forward to land at exactly the answer to that
Nice.
question. So
Yes.
you know what's interesting? Yeah, you know what's interesting is the fact that we went as a society from calling to texting has always been interesting to me. Counterintuitive, I guess I should say. Like if I were an alien visiting Earth and you had me guess which technology would precede which technology, I would guess that we would go from texting small amount of a limited number of characters from one direction to another direction to calling, where it's multi-directional, there's tonality, a lot more data is being sent across that same pipeline. But we didn't.
Mm.
We went the opposite direction. And most everybody in their personal lives texts more than they call. And I think the reason that is because texting is asynchronous and calling isn't. Namely, I can go ahead and I can text you that at a time it's convenient for me. You can read it and respond to it at a time it's convenient for you, right? That's why texting is so important in our day to day communication, and calling's lagged a little bit behind. What I see the future of Kixie doing is to make calling more synchronous. And how are we going to do that? Well, we serve millions of calls across our platform every day. And we have an AI that already does some really cool stuff with being able to predict phone numbers to call from that have the highest chance of being picked up by the people you're calling. What I see the future of Kixie doing is utilizing all this information we have coming into the CRMs we integrate with to make intelligent decisions about when to call somebody. So for instance, if the system is able to discern that, you know what, this person is 20% more likely to answer if the call is between, noon and 1 p.m. And that just happens to be because they don't schedule meetings right after
Yeah.
lunch. And I also happen to know that if I've opened an email within the last 2 days, that they're going to be 50% more receptive to a call that day. And I also know that calls are going to be twice as long if that call precedes 1 day from an email open instead of 2 days from an email open, right? I have all this information coming in. And what we can then do with that is make calling decisions that are more synchronous across two people's schedules, more likely to be answered, and have the person be more receptive to the call in the first place, right? So long term, what I see Kixie doing is trying to bring calling back a little bit and make it, by utilizing all this information we have about each other's habits and activities, to make smart decisions about when to call someone at a time they'd like to be called.
It's such a good insight. I'd never even thought about that. The idea that I've heard friends say that they don't even pick up the phone to their own friends anymore because it's like
It
it's a
is.
pattern interrupt. How dare this person call me?
It
But
is.
it's
What's
it's
so,
the
yeah.
ownership of time. Like you can do everything on your own time now.
Yep.
But the
It's so interesting,
yeah
calling it really, because it really is antithetical to text. So texting, it's asynchronous,
yeah
like I mentioned. I text you at
true.
times convenient for you. You respond when it's convenient for you. Calling is antithetical to that, right? I'm calling you at a time that's convenient for me, and now you're in the position of having to acquiesce to an unspecified amount of time at a time it's probably not convenient for you. And what do? You freak out and like, oh my god, how dare this person call me, right?
Yeah
That's because that dialing decision wasn't informed by anything about the other person's habits or activities, right?
yeah.
You made the decision on your own without knowing that. So let's help that along. Let's make this a more synchronous form of communication so that both parties are happy with it. That's kind of my goal long term.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I absolutely love it, and that there's it, just making better decisions. After someone's opened an email, call them within 5 minutes, and we can capture all that data
100%.
from the CRM, right? This is
Yeah.
which is kind
You've
of
got
leads on
email
to
tracking built right into
how
Pipedrive.
do these systems integrate? Like what? Obviously, you guys use it yourselves. Have you?
Yep.
How are you integrating Pipedrive and Kixie there?
That's a great question. So Pipedrive has workflow automations built in, and more importantly, Pipedrive has an amazing Zapier
Mm.
integration. And what that lets us do is use things like email tracking, like maybe you're adopting an active campaign or MailChimp or something that has email tracking built into it and allows that to be a trigger for calls. So the second someone opens an email, we auto call or auto text them to see what they thought about that email, or even an embedded video if they run a link within the email.
Brilliant.
We can also make it based off of like someone filling out a form on your website. That's a situation near and dear to my heart when people sign up for trials on Kixie, and we want to automatically call them or text them the second they sign up for a trial. We could do that right through that same Zapier integration and have that call track and record in Pipedrive as well. So it's really neat. A lot of what I have the most fun doing, especially working with an implementation shop like you guys, is really making cadences and sequences that are less prescriptive and more dynamic.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that, I'll go on a little tangent of my own, but it's one near and dear to my heart that I think also really aligns well with what you guys do at Evolve, which is, when a person typically has a sequence or a cadence that they have set up, it looks like this. It's like I'm going to call on day 1, I'm going to email on day 2, I'm going to text them on day 3, I'm going to email on day 10, and that's kind of how they go about it. So when they call someone on Thursday at 2 p.m. in the afternoon, it's for no particular reason other than it happens to be day 8 in their sequence, right? But what I really like to do with you guys, because you're so good at setting up people's pipelines inside of Pipedrive, is take all the information coming into Pipedrive to make more strategic decisions about when to call and text someone. So instead, it looks like this. New lead comes into the funnel, auto call and auto text. They don't respond, so I drop a pre-recorded voicemail with one click. And then I text them again the next day. And the minute they respond to that text message, now I know they're at their phone. I'm going to call them. But if they don't answer that call, chances are they didn't want to talk on a phone. It's not a good time. So instead, I'm going to text them a calendar link to schedule a time to talk to me. And when they schedule that time to talk to me, I'm going to auto text them the day before just to remind them to show up for that call. And then when the call happens, I'm going to auto call them so that my rep doesn't run the chance of accidentally forgetting to call them on that day and on that time. And so we create these cadences that look a lot less structured and are more utilizing the data coming in to make intelligent dialing and texting decisions. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's the amount of similarities to a conversation I had just yesterday about the process versus being reactive. So what we mean by that is, as a salesperson, what are you actually trying to do? You're trying to get someone's attention. So you might have your block of time in the morning to make your calls or your emails out or you're answering emails, and then you see the CRM tells you, oh, so and so's opened my email. Do you stop what you're doing because you've allotted that time, or do you not? Someone's knocking on my door. I should actually welcome that, right? So
100%.
It's a really interesting point about the making the calling synchronous again.
Yeah, and I think it's why automation becomes so important, because the last thing I want for my sales reps to be doing is sitting there monitoring their pipeline and Pipedrive for a deal to come in so they can be on top of it, right? Yeah. I want them to have the freedom to make these structured call blocks, to make this outreach, and know in the back of their mind that if one of these high priority events comes up, like someone opening an email or comes into the sales funnel or fills out a form or engages with a chatbot, that an automation is going to fire off that prompts me to call the person that second, or auto text them on my behalf or whatever.
No, I absolutely love it. So tell me, what's the best way to see how these two platforms integrate?
Oh, great question. So, I mean, you can, I'll use a plug opportunity. You can head over to kixie.com/evolve. You can sign up for, normally it's a 7-day trial, but if they're listening to this podcast, I'm making it a 30-day trial. We'll help you set it up. The integration is native, so it takes about 60 seconds to get integrated between Kixie and Pipedrive. And I've even got sales engineers on the floor who will help you with some of these advanced workflow automations and that kind of stuff. It's super easy.
Yeah, I'll be sure to put that in the link.
I'm sure you will. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, but there should also be, it'd be great to get some time with you to record some form of demo to kind of have with the integration piece as well, so we can share that.
I would love that. Let's definitely do that. Yeah, because there's a lot to dive into, and I'm just kind of touching the surface of it.
Yeah, for sure. So, David, this is I love these conversations, and we can keep going, right? So I'm just going to try and capture this at the end. So, quick fire. Pipedrive highlights and favorite integration pieces that you guys use together with Kixie and Pipedrive.
Yeah, great question. So I guess one of the things I love about Pipedrive is that it's already built to be a real sales engagement tool. Like it's a CRM that is focused on sales,
Yeah.
which I think they did a great job of capturing. I like other tools that increase sales. I'm a head of sales over here at Kixie. I'm a salesperson by trade. I'll tell you some of the really cool stuff we've done. I've taken a platform called Snitcher, which is much like Lead Feeder. It actually captures deals that come across the web page. You know what I'll do? I'm gonna tell you a quick little anecdote about how I got promoted to a manager at Kixie. So um, I wanted to move up, and I wanted to create an outbound strategy for Kixie. And there were two ways I could go about doing this. I could either do what I saw a lot of other companies do, which is hire some BDRs, start calling companies off of LinkedIn, and try and get them to adopt Kixie. Or I noticed, like looking at the Pipedrive insights, that right now about you know all of our revenue up until that point had been inbound, but really the people signing up for Kixie for trials that was their inbound leads was only about 5% of our website visitors. So that meant that 95% of the people visiting Kixie weren't signing up for a trial, and we were doing zero outreach to those people, right? So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go for the low hanging fruit. I want to find out who the heck those people are and reach out to people who already expressed an interest in Kixie. So I compared a couple different kind of insight platforms. Snitcher was my favorite one, but there's others too that basically let me know, like, hey, these are the people who visited your website, or at least the companies that they work at. Now I've got some information. So now I know whether they visited Kixie, what pages they were looking at. So maybe they looked at Kixie, they looked at our Pipedrive integration, and they looked at automatic voicemail drop or local presence dialing because they wanted to dial from local area code phone numbers. Great, let's reach out to that company. And so that kind of spawned the creation of my outboundish sales team, is what I called them, which are guys who basically are handling these inbound leads that aren't technically inbound leads because they didn't sign up for a trial, but it's not like cold outbound. So I use Snitcher. We use Slack like crazy. We have a Slack integration that lets us do some cool group messaging, like group auto texting through Slack, which is really neat. And then we use Kixie integrated with Pipedrive to basically be able to automate calling and texting. So when these new leads came in, we were able to automatically run them through Snitcher using Zapier. Those leads would come through. We'd use LinkedIn Sales Nav and Rocket Reach in order to kind of get contact phone numbers and information from them. Those leads would then drop into Pipedrive, trigger an auto call, auto text campaign through Kixie that was based off of them opening emails. When they engaged with emails, those would be prompts for auto calls and texts. And that was kind of the story of how we broke into outbound. So, and it was using Pipedrive and a couple other platforms. It's really cool.
Yeah, I love that, and it's what a tech stack. We talked about we touched upon kind of marketing tech stacks, but yeah, sales tech stacks at the sharp end of the spear. It's all there.
Yeah.
It's all there. If you want to go build it, it's there, right?
Yeah, and it's Martech got a lot of love. So for the last probably decade, marketing technology has been like a thing.
Yeah.
Sales tech is just now taking off. I mean, I'll give credit where it's due. Like, were it not for outreach, Gartner wouldn't have even recognized sales engagement as a quadrant. You know what I mean? It's only recently that they've actually carved that out. In a lot of ways, Pipedrive was really a pioneer in the CRM space. At a time when HubSpot was creating CRMs just for marketing people, Pipedrive had the insight to create a CRM that was based for salespeople, man. And to this day,
they've had visual pipeline by stage, and activity based selling.
Deal rotting.
It should be your sales enablement tool. If you have a CRM, you should not be hiring an admin to do your.
Oh my God, you're telling me about it. I know I have to be careful because I work with Salesforce and other CRMs. But I'll be candid. I'm on a Pipedrive podcast, man. Salesforce is tough, man. It's the gorilla in the room, and it is so much work to implement, and it is so expensive. You have to hire admins to set it up. Like for an SMB, like it's not worth it, man. You know what I mean? Pipedrive is so flexible and can do a lot of what you need. And if you want anything like more fancy in terms of automations and stuff, they work hand in glove with Zapier. I mean, I work with Joe Kearney and the North American sales team at Pipedrive, kind of implementing Kixie and trying to help them go upstream for larger customers. And they do some amazing stuff using Pipedrive and automations, and they have, I think, 1.3 million zaps that fire off every month in terms of automating tasks. So,
Scary,
it's a lot
scary
Pipedrive can
number
do.
of
It's
that.
scary, dude. Yeah, they're beasts. Yeah.
Well, brilliant. Well, David, once again, thank you very much. Is there anything in particular that you felt you haven't touched upon? In fact, I'll ask you this: doing some research around you, right? You've got your sales background. You've built this. You wanted to get your promotion at Kixie. But
Yeah,
you've got a law background, right? And I
I
love
do.
sales career paths.
Yeah.
What's the story there?
Yeah, I'm an interesting character. So I went to law school up at UC Hastings in San Francisco. I wanted to practice law, and I originally eventually got into IP law, although originally I wanted to do criminal. And the things I loved about IP law were working with startup companies. So I was
Is this
transactional.
when you
So
were on the
not
West Coast?
I'm still on the West Coast. This is when I was Northwest
Got you.
Coast, so
Okay.
Bay Area.
Great.
So I was living in the Bay Area at the time. So I was doing non-disclosure agreements, click wrap agreements, MSAs, all the stuff that salespeople typically hate because it impedes their deals.
Yeah.
I used to say, part of the way I got an in-house gig was by saying that I didn't want to be sales impediment. I wanted to be sales enablement. At the time, and that was like a novel
Love it.
approach for someone in legal to say.
Yeah.
So they loved it, and the sales team loved me. But it's such a perverse incentive, right? The attorneys, especially if you're outside counsel, get paid the longer they take and the more they mull over contracts. And the quicker they do it, they're paid by the hour. But we monitor time in 1/10 of an hour, so 6-minute increments.
Yeah.
So if I'm an attorney, I'm going to redline the hell out of these contracts, right? And make it, if I'm not in house, I really didn't like that. What I loved though was being part of the sales team. I liked helping make deals move forward. I really did. And it was interesting. I felt kind of stuck because when you're professional like that, I mean, my mom's so happy I went to law school and got into law, and the last thing I wanted to do was to go from a profession that's held in really high regard by people to a sales position that honestly doesn't get the credit it deserves, especially these days. This isn't the salespeople I know aren't used car salesmen trying to pressure people into buying something. Instead, they're some of the smartest, most driven, hardworking people I know who have to be, to sell to a Grant Cardone, you have to be more knowledgeable about implementing better sales processes than one of the best salesperson in the world, right? You have to go to a sales guru and have the audacity to say, we can actually help you sell better than you've been selling,
Yeah.
right? So, I had to kind of take a leap of faith and be like, you know what, like, I want to go into sales. I want to help deals move forward and not be sales impediment anymore,
I love it.
And so that's what I did. It's the best decision I've ever made. I got to be honest. Anyone listening to this who feels stuck in a law career, like I've got a lot of friends from law school who hit me up all the time. Don't feel like you can't take that legal education and utilize it for something you're a little bit more passionate about. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, preach. Yeah, it's there's certainly another podcast there, right? In terms of the whole career path and
totally.
It's pretty incredible. Just what there were no courses on how to sell.
There are none. It's not considered like more of a profession in the same way that being a doctor or an attorney is. But man, the earning potential is huge, and the complexity of a sales process these days is nothing like a door-to-door person selling Cutco knives or something. This is tough, man. You have to know about all these different sales platforms and automations. You have to know about buying cycles. You have to know about how to bring different decision makers together from different departments. And I mean, it's a skill. It's a real art to be able to sell well. And it's rare because you can't just take somebody who's intellectually smart or somebody who just has kind of EQ, right, and is sociable and good at building rapport. You need someone who can combine those two things. And man, that's tough to find.
Yeah,
man. It's really tough to find.
And the resilience.
It's even tougher
Again,
to teach.
we can keep going, but
Yeah.
the resilience part, the difference between a good salesperson and a bad one gets told no 9 times out of 10. A good one gets told no 7 times out of 10. It's margin.
Yeah.
You've got to be resilient. You've got to get told there's rejection.
100%.
Anyway, so just to wrap this up, David. I'll be sure to. You mentioned a link to get an extended trial, so I'll be sure to put it in the show notes. what's the best way to go about get it if they want a demo, right? So we're gonna you and I will
Yep.
record a demo, but the
Yep.
best way to get a demo themselves.
Yeah, if you go to Kixie.com, there's a big button that says schedule demo.
Okay.
You can just click on that bad boy. And I promise you a couple things are going to happen because of these automations we've
Yeah.
spoken about. The minute you schedule a demo, a salesperson is going to automatically reach out to you via text message. They're going to confirm the meeting. They're going to auto text you before the meeting to make sure that you know what time to show up. If you call them or text them, they will call or text you back. I guarantee it. And we'll help you implement Kixie basically for free. I take a very consultative sales approach over here at Kixie. It's super low pressure. Like, use Kixie for a month. If it increases your sales more than it costs, then adopt Kixie. And if it doesn't, then don't adopt Kixie. It's a real cut and dry sales process.
Brilliant. So thank you very much, David, and thank you for listening. This has been the Evolve Pipedrive podcast, where we talk all things Pipedrive, sales, apps, and a Pipedrive marketplace. David, once again, thank you. Please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing with anyone that you think will find this useful. Cheers, guys.
Thank you so much, Bruce, for having me on. And I also encourage people to check out Evolve. Like, if you have a CRM, just because you bought Pipedrive doesn't mean you're getting the most out of it. And I know the last thing you want to do is try and become a CRM expert while trying to run a sales organization. Call up Bruce and his guys over at Evolve. They will get you set up and optimize your sales process through Pipedrive. They're awesome at it. So I got to give a shout out to you guys too. You've done an incredible job with the customers we work together on.
Love it. I appreciate that. Thank you. Cheers, guys.
Awesome. Thanks, bud.